Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is often a single photograph that represents a whole era, or history itself, or in today's world, a single video clip on YouTube. In this era, we have our own YouTube video clip. The era when the time of the peace and prosperity suddenly ended in Europe. The era when Europe, Central Europe, my country and my city suddenly had to cope with the combined effects of the economic crisis, the energy crisis, and the climate crisis. You may also remember the video I'm talking about. I watched it over and over again. It happened in March when Matteo Salvini, the leader of Italy's right-wing populist party, was utterly humiliated. He was called out his ties to Putin by Mayor Wojciech Bakun of Przemyśl, a town in the southeast corner of Poland. Salvini came with aid to the Ukrainian refugees who kept coming across the border in the tens of thousands every day in that early phase of the war. Mayor Bakun thanked the Italian organizations that helped to collect aid. And then he pulled out a T-shirt from his jacket with Putin's image printed on it. It was a copy of a T-shirt in which Salvini has posed on Red Square in Moscow, and later also in the European Parliament. Bakun challenged Salvini to put the T-shirt on and go with him to the refugee center at the border to see what his friend had done to the Ukrainian people. No respect for you, Bakun said to Salvini, who walked away in shame. I can easily imagine this scene at this Polish border town as an illustration in a 22nd century history textbook in a chapter covering our era. I'm just not sure what the title and what the main narrative of the chapter would be. Would it indeed be a chapter about how Putin's well-organized threat against liberal democracy started to fall apart? Would it be a chapter, perhaps, also about how Western democracies were finally brought to their senses by the energy crisis, averting the climate catastrophe in the last minute? Or would it merely be an illustration of a fleeting episode? A passing embarrassment for the worldwide authoritarian populist right before the climate crisis put democracy on the shelf for generations? I don't know the answer to this question. And I believe nobody does. Nobody knows because this chapter of history has not been written yet. What we do know right now is that the way in which we use our free will to act is critical for democracy and critical for humanity. But there are at least 3 points I do know. Let's start from here. Firstly, modern wars are almost always connected to fossil fuels. Let me cite here the director of the Hungarian branch of Greenpeace at a demonstration earlier this year. His claim was that while many wars have been fought for control over fossil fuels, wars for renewables are so far unheard of. Fossil fuels are easy to weaponize, just as Putin weaponizes gas. Renewables, on the other hand, are much more democratic sources of energy, more difficult to control and monopolize by autocratic rulers. Just as fossil fuels are weapons in the hands of autocratic rulers, renewables safeguard peace for democracies. My second point is about right-wing populism. As the wonderful Timothy Snyder pointed out in The Road to Unfreedom, the populist narrative that has been on the rise worldwide is a creation of Vladimir Putin. Salvini learned this lesson the hard way in Poland. There is a key difference between Western democracy and right-wing populism. While Western democracy seeks to separate good from bad, right-wing populism distinguishes between us and them. In doing so, truth and facts become relative, and the moral standards become disposable. And finally, Our responsibility is immense. It is immense because we don't want our chapter to be written by others. We need to start writing it ourselves. I acknowledge that there are forces of history scale as magnitude at work now, which may seem far too great to any one of us to make any difference to their outcome. But I don't believe in determinism. And I encourage all of you not to believe in determinism. We may face forces of history scale and magnitude, but our action can shape the course of history. We are here precisely for this reason, to discuss how to strengthen democratic resilience, to find ways of combating the energy crisis, and to build sustainable democracies. I wish us all the very best in this immense work. Thank you.